Oh, welcome. We're talking
Hello.
food sensitivity tests with Pauline Weisman, who is our resident nutritionist who sees all our practice patients and fertility patients. And she's been doing this a long time. So we thought we'd get you, Pauline, on. So because you're kind of the expert in food sensitivity testing. So the idea is that we like to share with you all the really important tests to figure out for health. And we think this is right up there in really important tests because we find that most people are eating foods every day, and it's often the foods we like to eat every day that are causing them inflammation. And what can that inflammation do over time? It could help lead to osteoarthritis, diabetes, heart disease, inflammation in all our joints, in our blood vessels, etc. And GI symptoms are just sort of the start of it. It really is a whole body systemic inflammation associated with the specific foods we're eating. So we're not talking food allergy testing. We're not talking about people who are like eating the peanuts and like lips turning blue and can't breathe. It's not that one. These are food sensitivities. So Pauline, tell us what a food sensitivity test is.
So, a food sensitivity test would be a test that would determine the amount of inflammation or immune response that your body's mounting to the proteins in particular foods that you're consuming. So, very specifically, it's usually it's an IgG test or an IgG and an IgA test, which are specific immunoglobulins that we have in our system, in our gut. So when we consume foods and they enter, obviously we consume them, digestion starts on the tongue, they get into our digestive tract, and they get into the small intestines and then the large intestines. We can be mounting, if your body's seeing particular proteins frequently, or your body is sensitive to certain foods and it's the proteins in the foods that your body's responding to, then it can mount an inflammatory response against these foods, and it can cause inflammation, not just in the gut, but systemically. So there becomes a problem when someone is consuming a food that may be a very healthy food or maybe an awesome food for someone else to eat. But if you're consuming it and your body doesn't like it and it's mounting an immune response and there's a lot of inflammation in the gut, that can then not just lead to gut issues, but these other issues that you were starting to refer to.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, my grandparents didn't have these problems as much because their food quality and their gut lining was just way more healthy than ours. But now it's sort of crucial in medicine. And I'll say I didn't used to run these all the time because the tests were not great tests. Now they're so much better. Now I do run them all the time, but I didn't run them all the time because I thought, okay, well, we can just take these foods out and reintroduce them. And so we would do that, but it causes people a lot of stress to do a full allergy elimination diet. So these tests are phenomenal at catching things you would never know. So tell us some things that you catch that are like bizarre.
Well, can we start? Do you mind if we start with the elimination diet information first? Can we do that? So normally we would, if we weren't going to run a test, we would start with an elimination diet, which means there's like a typical 6 set of foods that we would take out that a lot of people tend to be either sensitive to or have an allergy to, right? But maybe you don't have an allergy, but you're sensitive to a particular food. But if you're going to do that, it requires taking all these foods out for at least a few weeks and then determining how your body's responding and then adding them back in one by one, very controlled over the course of several days. You add one food in, you wait a few days, you add the next food in.
And patients always say to us, I didn't really realize that it takes that long to complete this process.
And I always tell them too, it's like, yes, because it can take up to 72 hours for a food to completely pass through your digestive tract. So you can have an inflammatory response or a systemic response up to 72 hours after you've consumed a food. And that is so hard to determine. What you ate 3 days ago might be causing the issue you're having now, which is why the food sensitivity test is so valuable.
It just gives us such a jumping start. And so one of the problems is that people get these test results and sort of read it and they're like, oh, I can't eat anything. I don't know even where to start here. So really there's a pattern in looking here. So Usually we take people off, we do not take the test at face value. We sort of look at their lifestyle, et cetera, and we'll take them off 1 to 3 foods. I mean, really, that's really what we're doing. And isn't that a million times easier than doing a full allergy elimination diet? And I'll tell you, 99% of people, this is adequate. So that's why this is a tool that now we can use. It's amazing. And it can have real long-term benefits. The amount, I'm always amazed, and I know you're reading about this online and this and that, but I'm totally shocked at how many people come back or write back to us and say, you have no idea the benefits of me changing my foods around. What happened here? I stopped snoring. My husband's happier with me. I can move now. My low back pain is
my headaches
gone.
went away.
My headaches went away.
That's a huge one.
Oh, acne. My acne went away. My mood is a huge one here.
Yep.
So anxiety, depression, people completely control anxiety, depression by these dietary changes in their lives. It's amazing to see it, and so it's just such a tool that's right at your fingertips, and the prices come down. They're so good, these tests.
It's so valuable. It's so valuable. And it gives people concrete evidence as to say, okay, you know what? I need to take out these couple of things, but I don't need to take out everything.
Right. And sometimes it's something like green beans. I wouldn't have told
or
that
garlic
person.
Or black pepper.
Right.
Something
we can't figure it out by talking to people.
Right.
So it's this incredible thing, actually, that we have this ability to use these tests, but not use them to the point of, they are an absolute must as far as getting the inflammatory foods out of your diet. And then eventually, very often, you can reintroduce those foods. But we recommend every 6 months doing these tests because they change.
The body changes, your lifestyle changes, what you're dealing with changes. Food, in New England, food changes greatly as far as what you're consuming throughout the course of the year.
True.
So this is big. So I always like to check in with people, even if they're not having issues as the seasons change, so that we can talk about okay, what foods are you consuming at this point? Because that will vary greatly too. People's backyard gardens start growing. They start eating those foods that maybe they weren't eating all winter.
And then sometimes you notice, okay, in the fall, I have more joint inflammation. And then you look at the test and you're like, oh, because look at all these foods. It's really quite interesting to look at it. This idea that food is medicine, right? So imagine if you had these tests way back hundreds, thousands of years since people started doing this, we could have prevented so many problems.
So many, right? So many.
Yeah.
And you talk about inflammation and bringing down inflammation and keeping the body healthy and vibrant, especially with aging. If foods are driving up inflammation that you're eating every day, where you could be just make a simple switch.
And they're simple. It's actually simple.
Yeah.
So tell me how fast, say my food sensitivity test comes back and you see, you probably have a dairy problem and you probably can't eat vanilla or whatever it is for me. How long would I eliminate those 1 to 3 foods is pretty typical about what we recommend to people. How long would I have to go off those before you think I see a difference?
I mean, I always like to tell people, give it, technically, I would say, allow a few weeks just to have everything, your body calm down a bit. But generally, people will report changes in days, right? So you'll get an email. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't even believe it. You know what I mean? I came off this food and I'm shocked.
And another thing that we hear really consistently is that people's friends and family members say, oh, what are you doing? You look younger. You look 10 years younger, because without these inflammatory foods, our skin can repair.
Yeah. It's the first thing. I find it's the first thing that people notice about other people is when they take out these foods, is that their skin. You see it through the skin.
Yeah. And we
talked about that with detoxing too. And this is a type of detox for your body, right? In a sense, it's you're taking out what your body doesn't want.
Yeah.
And it shows.
And so one other benefit of this that I see is that, I'm just kind of like your average human over here, and I really want to eat what I want to eat. So I can get into this mindset here where I don't really want to not eat dairy or whatever it is that I'm reacting to. So theoretically, I can notice, oh, my digestion's not so good. I'm a little sluggish. My joints, that's kind of what would happen to me. My joints are aching and I'll get headaches, like you said.
Okay.
And I might know that and I get it in my mind, but I don't necessarily make the change because sometimes it's easier to eat whatever it is that sometimes I'm just into almond milk in the morning in my smoothie and I'm just eating the almond milk every day. And so honestly, seeing the test makes a difference.
Well, you're making me think about a conversation you and I had maybe 9 years ago.
Okay.
And we talked about dairy, actually.
This could get scary.
And
I don't know.
we talked about dairy. It was about me and dairy, actually.
Oh, okay.
And we were talking about the morning ritual, right? And the coffee and, you're like, what do you put in your coffee? And we were talking about like, okay, is it creamer? Is it coconut creamer? Is it almond milk? Is it regular milk? And just the concept of even if you're just putting in like a teaspoon of dairy into your coffee every morning and you don't eat dairy for the rest of the day, but if your body's constantly seeing that tiny bit over and over and over again, and I talk to clients about this all the time now,
because
it keeps inflammation high. It keeps inflammation high because even if it's just a trace amount, but it's over and over again, you're never going to get that inflammation down until you completely take it out.
And unfortunately, we do see a lot of people react to dairy.
Yes.
Because people like dairy products. But you brought up recently about using dairy as protein. Because often we talk to people and they say, oh, I don't really eat dairy. And then you find it. So tell us about that. It's interesting.
Yeah,
so out there, if you're listening, do you eat dairy products and how much do you eat? Just thinking about that.
And for the record, eggs are not dairy. Yes. Eggs are a separate category, right? We're talking about anything made from cow's milk. Yeah.
But I think that coffee conversation came up probably, like I remember, I think a little bit because the pattern was that people couldn't give up the half and half in their coffee because half and half is delicious in coffee.
Yeah,
Of course.
It changes the coffee.
And that was so long ago that now we have more alternatives that are delicious.
It used to be
back then it was like you couldn't put almond milk in your coffee. It was so watery and
remember? And now there's like so many other options.
Yes.
For dairy substitutes. I mean, I find that like right now, as long as you're aware and you're in an area of the country where you can have access to like some natural supermarkets that carry some of these products, or even now there's a great online retailers where you can order them, and it's an easy switch now. It's just knowing what you can switch to. Right. And finding your preferences.
And we find that folks who are, if you're really feeling sick and sluggish out there, then you're more likely to make these changes. It's sort of like, okay, I feel terrible every day. I'm going to make these changes. And you're more motivated, honestly. But if you're listening to this and you have these kind of little aches and pains, a little bit like me, then this tool is phenomenal because you have the report. You have it on paper and now you're like, okay, my immune system is reacting to these proteins and these foods. And I know that there's an issue here. Now, what am I going to do about it? So it is that works for me because I don't know, I'm a busy person and I'm running around. Maybe I wouldn't be as motivated if I didn't have it on a report. Honestly, it's just human nature.
And I would say you're speaking to yourself. I would say speaking to me where I am at my stage of life is that, and I speak to a lot of women at my stage now, this whole either perimenopausal or menopausal stage where what they were doing before is not working anymore. And they're not feeling, and they're trying things and they're not getting the results that they want. They don't feel as good as they used to. Absolutely. What is it? And so sometimes it's okay. Let's find out if your diet's really working for you. Maybe we can run the food sensitivity test. Maybe we can see like where can we make the tweaks, the easy tweaks, so you feel the way you want to feel.
And you are motivated. But that brings up a whole other point is that your GI lining, looking at it, has all these receptors for your hormones and as your hormones change, and the fertility people that we work with, it's literally the same story, right? So as the hormones are shifting and changing, your GI system really needs to be addressed. So it's just so important.
Yes.
I mean, everything's so connected.
Yes, and it's like when you go for females, it's like when you go through puberty and those hormones change, and then it's like, okay, pregnancy, hormones, fertility, pregnancy, and then it's again like at this change of, you know, menopausal time frame. Like this is when things get kicked up. This is when we see things, you know, that need to be addressed, or that we need to be tighter or cleaner with our diets, or pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah, so even, you know, the test I did 10 years ago is completely useless right now. So we do have to consistently see like where we are today and what we can do about it. And I do think this is prevention of long-term illness. It really is a big deal. Yeah, it really is. It's like, it's not because it's fun to do these tests. So I get that. Like, you know, we're all like so excited to get the report. We do this regularly at our office, by the way, with our staff. We've been doing this a few years. Oh yeah. It's fun because I get the report. So I like to look at everyone else's reports. And I'm like, Christine, no nutmeg or vanilla for you. You know, it's like kind of funny. And I'm like, look, the cocoa didn't come up this time, you know, like, so it's kind of fun to look over time actually. And you can see, but there are real consistencies in people's tests too. And those are the real things.
And I will say for myself, speaking for myself, I've taken food sensitivities for ever. Yeah. And I've used all different companies, right, over the course of the years. And there are a couple things that are that will always come up on my test, right? So, and that's consistent.
It is,
right?
and it's real,
and it's real. Like, and that's, you know, for me, dairy is one of those things. Yeah.
For me, asparagus is one of those things. So don't feed me asparagus if I'm ever over for dinner, because I can't eat asparagus. It's okay, because that's a very specific thing. It's like in springtime it comes up a lot, but it's like it is consistent. Okay, so that's the deal on food sensitivity tests. I know that Pauline has to run to a patient, so thanks, Pauline, for coming to talk to us about that.
Thanks for having me.
It's always really nice to have that depth of understanding after so many years of working with people and their diets and switching their diets. So thanks so much, because it's a very like nuanced approach you have, and it's not just like black and white. There's no cookie cutter thing.
No,
you know, I love that.
We're all unique.
We're all unique.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.